just wait for the microphones for one final time this year.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I want to start the media session and 2022 season recap by thanking our fans. Growing up here, I was a proud Ranger fan. I remember the pain of losing seasons and spending the month of October watching other teams compete in the playoffs, wondering when that's going to be us. In a season in which we lost 94 games, we drew over 2 million fans, which is tremendous. We're extremely grateful to every Ranger fan who supported us this season, whether in stadium, on the TV, or on the radio. I share your frustrations, and I'm looking forward to the coming years when you're watching us play in the month of October. You deserve to win, and we appreciate your loyalty and your patience, and we thank you during this time. Look, there's no hiding the disappointment of our record this season. We acknowledged at the beginning of the year that this was the next step in our rebuild, fully understanding that it was unlikely we would go from last place to first place in 1 year. We improved in the win column by 8 games, which was about half of our internal expectations. We didn't see the progress we wanted in terms of our record, and that's extremely frustrating. You know, as I sit here today, 2 days after the season has ended, we have a lot of clarity in terms of what our biggest needs are and how we intend to address those needs. That said, I still believe there's a lot of reason for optimism, and a lot of things that we learned this season are going to serve us well moving forward. I want to start by recognizing some of the positives on the PD side. Last year, we restructured the leadership with the purpose of taking the next steps of creating a winning championship environment and a pipeline of talent to the major leagues. Right now we have one of the deepest, most balanced, and talented systems in baseball. Additionally, many of our top prospects graduated to the upper levels of the minor leagues, including several that contributed to a championship in AA Frisco. We've challenged our entire organization to develop a winning mindset, and it was great to see this fulfilled by our Frisco Rough Rider team this year. On the big league side, we saw the debut of a number of our young players who have bright futures, including Josh Young, Josh Smith, Cole Reagans, Bubba Thompson, and Ezekiel Duran. Additionally, Marcus, Corey, Adolis, and Nate all had tremendous seasons, and on the pitching side, Bartine and John Gray were outstanding. In the bullpen, we had Brock Burke, who was a real bright spot, and we saw moments of success from Jonathan and Jose Leclerc, who were both back from Tommy John surgery. As we turn to the offseason, I believe we have a very solid group of core players in place, and I feel good about where we are on that front. I acknowledge there's still a lot of work to do as we look to improve this ball club, but I'm really, really excited about the next steps we're going to take. I think a lot of that starts with the hiring process of our next manager. We are interviewing Tony Beasley today. Additionally, we will bring in external candidates, and we hope to have that process concluded in the coming weeks. In terms of specific positions of needs for next year, we have said we intend to address our pitching and specifically our starting rotation. We will be active on the free agent market with the intention of signing multiple starting pitchers. Likewise, we will explore trade opportunities and any other ways to improve our pitching should they exist. We're very hopeful to bring back Martin Perez, and we are going to recommence discussions with him next week and his representatives. In terms of ownership, Ray was very transparent about his frustrations with where we are, and he said specifically he's tired of losing. He is fully committed to providing the resources necessary for us to build a winning team, and I'm extremely grateful for his support in this. We're super excited for the offseason and looking forward to the future of Texas Rangers baseball. Our fans, like I said, deserve a winning championship caliber team, and we are not going to stop until that is achieved. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Chris, you, at the outset of the season, did mention that this team had goals of improving, right? And as you've acknowledged, probably didn't reach those wins and losses goals. But one thing that was mentioned often was the championship culture and creating a championship culture. What elements of a championship culture took root at the big league level this year?
Well, I think one, just some fundamental leadership from core veteran players. I think that was the purpose of bringing in Marcus and Corey. I think the impact they've had on our organization and the players around them, we have a better environment as we sit here today for young players to come up and understand what it means to be successful at this level. And in part because of Corey and Marcus, John Gray, Martine, and really some of the veterans that we brought in. I think that was a big step forward. I think there's more steps to be taken there. But I think the essence of what we're trying to achieve in terms of a championship culture and mentality are specifically embodied by those two players, Corey and Marcus, amongst others.
Jeff.
I'm guessing Martine falls in that leadership area too. With the uncertainty of free agency, how important is it to get something done with him before free agency opens?
Look, the timing I'm less worried about. Martine has been a tremendous leader, a tremendous competitor. His work ethic, the way he prepared day in, day out, he took the ball, he posted. I can't say enough about the season he had, and we are very intent on bringing him back. Like I said, we'll begin those discussions next week. The timing of that, I'm less concerned about. Our focus is to try to get him back.
As we sit here today, yesterday you made 2 changes in the Major League pitching staff, and I believe you made at least 3 on player development. I'm not aware if there are any more. What was the issue with pitching and pitching player development this year?
Well, I think in general, we're not where we need to be in terms of a championship caliber club. As a pitching staff, I think we have a ways to go there. I think that this organization should and can be known for our pitching development. And I think these moves are necessary for us to achieve that.
Thank you, Jeff.
You mentioned Jose Leclerc as a positive at times. You guys have a club option for him. What's your intention there? And then also, when you were in Kansas City, those teams were built largely on a bullpen, outside of your contributions to the rotation. What's your philosophy on a bullpen, and do you want to attack this bullpen via free agency?
Look, I think just in general, a bullpen success is as good as their starting rotation and vice versa. I think they're all interconnected and dependent on each other. I think when you have a very solid bullpen, you have ways of shortening a game. It puts less pressure on your starters. Likewise, when you have starters that go deep in the game, it puts less pressure on the pen. So it's very interconnected. We want to be good at both. I think there were some real positives in the bullpen this year. We saw some really good multi-inning options in terms of, Taylor Hearn had success in this role. Brock Burke, obviously, Matt Moore was in that role for a period of time. We saw the value of winning those middle innings, the 6th, 7th inning, holding the game, holding a lead in those innings to turn it over to the back end of the bullpen. So that said, Jeff, there are a lot of ways to build a pitching staff, and we are going to be open-minded and creative. We have the ability to be flexible right now, given our personnel. In terms of how we build this in the moving forward. Specific to Jose, we have not decided yet. We will have those discussions next week. I acknowledge the positives that we saw from him, especially as the season went on. It was very encouraging. He is a tremendous clubhouse presence, a great leader. Unbelievably tireless worker, and really embodies a lot of the attributes that we want in our players. I think he's a great fit for us, but we have not made a final decision on his option.
Similar question to Jeff's, but slightly more specific. The Rangers have not gone out and spent money on a closer in quite a while. How important is it to you to, I guess, address the closer role? Is that something that you feel is a pressing need right now?
Well, I don't think it's our most pressing need. I think we had good back-end options this year, especially once Jose and Jonathan came back. I think that it's tough to judge their seasons coming back from Tommy John surgery. I think that next year is the year that those pitchers will rebound and be in true form. Likewise, Matt Moore was phenomenal. We would have interest in bringing Matt back. But I think that our starting pitching was our biggest limitation this year, and we need to upgrade that. That'll be the primary focus.
you kind of answered my second part of the question, but Matt Moore, at the trade deadline, you guys had said that he and Perez were guys that you had interest in bringing back. What are kind of some of the factors? How do you view that decision?
Well, I think it's as much from the performance side as it is the culture side. And these guys are established veterans who have been through the grind of the season. They've had success. They've seen the hard times as well. They set great examples for our young guys. They provide stability and leadership, which is needed. And for that, they fit. But much less their performance speaks for itself.
Chris, about 7 weeks ago, whatever, like you said, Ray Davis had made it clear his frustration and wants to win. Since you've been in this role, and since, basically more control, what have you done evaluation-wise different, and what have you seen differently from this team in that 7-week deep dive I'm assuming you've done?
Well, it's been a 2-year deep dive since I've been here, 18-month. I mean, it's the vision remains the same, the process is still the same. Inevitably, there will be a different way or style at times, but by and large, the commitment to our vision is still in place. And like I said, we're very excited about where we are as an organization in terms of our farm system. We have the resources to continue to add via free agency and trade. And the goal is that when we start to win, we win for a long time. And that's important to get right on the front end here. And I think that we've done a very good job of putting ourselves in positions for that. But this offseason is big to make sure we take the next step.
I know you just said you guys are interviewing Beasley later today. How would you evaluate his 6-week stint as interim outside of, I guess, the win-loss column, and just going forward with the managerial search? What specific things are you guys really looking at?
I think Bees did a tremendous job. He inherited a difficult situation with the midseason change. We acknowledged that when we made the move. We felt like Tony was the right person at the time to help us really reestablish some things that we were missing. And he, in my opinion, succeeded in those areas. I think I said publicly at the time, we weren't going to judge him solely on his win-loss record or how the team played. We knew that we had a young group coming and that they were going to have to get exposure at the big league level. There may be some growing pains that come with that. But in terms of what we were looking for with our culture, the management of the staff, those types of things, I thought Bees did a tremendous job. He's a wonderful person, and we were lucky to have him step in that role.
Maybe an odd question, but are there any other internal candidates for that managerial job?
No, there are not.
Okay. As far as the front office goes, do you feel that you need to bring in a general manager to work under you, kind of like you did under John Daniels, or do you feel like this is something that you would prefer to kind of just handle on your own for a while?
Look, I think that we've got a very strong front office. We have a very good group. We did some restructuring last year. I think that as we move into the offseason, get past the manager search, we'll always look for our areas to improve, and the front office will likely be one of those in time. What specific positions, I can't say. Part of that is the natural cycle of the calendar year and where we are. There are always changes, but I am very confident in the group we have. I'm thankful for our leadership team, and I'm excited about what we're building together.
On that level, this goes for, I guess, both for the managerial situation and for the front office situation. We've addressed the managerial thing, and you talked about how valuable experience could be. Do you need somebody in your front office that you feel like has sat in the GM's chair that you can bounce things off of?
It's always great to have wisdom around you, whether it's specific to somebody who's done the exact job or somebody who's been in the industry and the game for a long time. So I appreciate wisdom in general. So I can't say specifically. I haven't really spent time in this area, Evan, so it's hard for me to fully commit to what the needs are there, but we will look to continue to upgrade and improve in all areas, whether it's front office, our coaching staff, our on-field group. We're always looking to improve, and wisdom is a part of improving.
And to that point, I mean, you just mentioned that you haven't spent a lot of time in this area. You came into this job 2 years ago with a unique background. Not many GMs at this point in time played in the big leagues. You had that. You also had the MLB experience. But When you came into the role, I don't think you had managed a department of people, and now you've got multiple departments of people reporting to you. What challenges, like in the last 2 months in particular, have kind of arisen as you try and take that first step into managing people?
Sure. I mean, at MLB, I did manage a department, so it's different than a baseball department, but nonetheless, it's people management. It comes down to relationships, communication, establishing systems, processes, and clear standards of expectation. And I think that there's great things that come with that. There's challenges that come with it, but ultimately, I believe in surrounding myself with a great team of people, which I feel like I have. And I'm, as I said, very grateful for the group we have. I'm excited about executing our vision and improving this club. And if we bring in anybody from the outside to assist with that, I know that they'll be a fit from a culture standpoint, and they'll make us all better as a group.
Back to Stephen.
Chris, the last three managers that have been hired were all first-time big league managers, and notwithstanding Tony right now, but when you look externally, are you looking at guys that have been there, done that, or are you still open to somebody who hasn't had that opportunity?
We will consider both. There are very good big league managers right now that were first-time big league managers at one point. So we're not going to put limits on who we consider. We're looking for the right person to help the Texas Rangers win in 2023 and beyond.
Do you have a frame of a number, let's see, how many people you kind of want to look at, or does that kind of determine by who's available or who might be interested?
I think we're narrowing that right now. We started with a large master list, and we're narrowing that as we speak. But it's probably the extent to which I'd feel comfortable sharing information on that at this point.
Ozzie.
Yeah, Chris, going into the offseason, are there any players that you feel would benefit from playing winter ball, and would you encourage that?
In general, I'm a fan of winter ball. We've had several of our players ask. There are different circumstances for each player that we need to evaluate and understand where they are, what their workload was this year, how they prepare for next season. But in general, we support our players playing winter ball, and as those opportunities arise, we will be open-minded.
Back to Jeff, and then we'll go to Kennedy.
When are you going to start interviewing external candidates?
As I said, we're going to hopefully have the whole process wrapped up in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Some of that will depend on playoffs and access to candidates, but it will begin shortly.
What do you remember about your time playing for Bruce Bocce?
I love playing for Bocce. He was a tremendous manager. I only had 1 year with him. We had a winning season together. I learned a lot from him. Just a calm, steady presence. Have the utmost respect for him. It's no surprise that he went on to win 3 world championships with the Giants, and he's a tremendous person and manager.
When it comes to the pitching staff, both on the major league side and in player development, and I know some of that will come down to the manager, but how do you envision maybe, I guess, the overhaul of the pitching development throughout the organization?
Well, Kennedy, look, ultimately it's going to lie in how well we develop our own and get really good young major league pitchers that are big league ready and contributing members to a championship team. That's ultimately what the best organizations are able to do. I think we have as much pitching talent in our organization right now, maybe as this organization's ever had, but certainly as you look around baseball, I love the talent we have, but talent's only as good as your ability to get them to the big leagues. And I'm confident in our PD group, our pitching department. I'm confident we'll make the right hires to help get these guys and help them realize their full potential. But it's a must for us as an organization, and we're committed to doing it.
Levi, then Evan.
Last offseason, hearing you guys talk right around this time of year, it was not a surprise, I think, to us that you made a big splash in the free agent market. But around the sport, people looked at where the team was and went, wow, that seems early, right? Like you still have these young guys coming up, and you went, that was on purpose. I heard Ray say a while ago, we're not probably going to spend as much this year as we did last year. But I'm curious if, from a pitching standpoint, are you guys looking to, this is kind of a two-part question, are you looking to play at the top of the market in starting pitching? And if so, is that because you feel like you're ready to go contend, or is it more like last year's where you're sort of setting up that structure for the young guys to come up
No,
into?
I'll answer the first one. I mean, my expectation is that we're contending next year. And I think to do that, we need solid starting pitching. And we're going to explore all aspects of the starting pitching market. Top to bottom, we're going to find the right group to help the Texas Rangers compete for the playoffs next season.
So I just want to clarify on these questions regarding pitching. You mentioned that ownership said that they are committed and they will give you the resources. His resources mean an increased payroll for 2023.
Yes.
Okay. The second question is, to Jeff's point, based on everything you know, can you envision this managerial search taking place without having definitive knowledge of whether or not Bruce Bocce is interested in managing the Rangers?
I'm not going to comment on specific candidates, Evan.
Okay, so great minor league pitching depth. You want to re-sign Martin and 2 other starting pitchers. Somewhere those ideas don't mesh if you've got 4 or 5 spots tied up on long-term deals. So are you guys looking more at one-year deals on free agents, or will everything just...
Like I said, we're open on all aspects of the starting pitching market. I think that's independent of the pipeline of talent we have. I think we saw this year that pitching development isn't necessarily linear. They don't all come at once. I think that the key for us is making sure that when they get here, they're ready to contribute, and we're not putting them into an environment they're not prepared for. Part of that is having established veteran players around them.
Okay, also, when the changes were made in August, Ray Davis said he wants a middle-of-the-order bat. And we all assume left field. But Bubba played pretty well in left field. Do you guys really need a bat?
I think every team in baseball would use a middle-of-the-lineup bat.
Let's go, Alex.
But with the goal next year, Chris, do you feel like outfield is a position that you need to look externally, or do you feel like you have enough internal candidates?
Well, I like our internal options, but we're going to look for every way to improve our club. And so, again, I said that specific to the starting pitching market, but also with additions to the lineup, we're going to be open-minded, be creative, and look to see the best way to add to our club. I think one of the things you always need is more depth, and certainly if we bring somebody else in, it means that we're creating some depth too.
Back to Evan.
I don't think I asked this well enough the first time on pitching. What is the messaging you want to send to whatever your pitching staff, not pitchers, but the staff that handles pitchers? What is the message that they need to send, that they need to execute? You've talked about a larger vision. What exactly does that encompass?
Well, it ultimately being part of a pitching staff that is a World Series caliber staff. It's one of the best in baseball. We're not there. That's the expectation. That's the standard. And until we get there, we're going to keep exploring every possible way to do that.
Are there planks of that, elements that you can enumerate a little bit?
Well, I think it starts with just, on us as a front office to choose the right personnel in terms of coaches and the players, the talent level, and then creating an environment, a mindset, making sure they have the physical tools with the mental tools, and that we get the right group of players collectively that feed off one another.
Okay, back to Kennedy.
You mentioned it in your opening statement, but that group of prospects who came up, Josh, Bubba, Cole, how would you evaluate how they acclimated to the big leagues this year?
Kennedy, it's a good question. It's I've said this before, and I stand by it, that player development does not stop when you get to the big leagues. It continues. And I think for a young player, one of the hardest things to do is deal with the struggles and the failures at the big league level. I think we saw that from each of those players at times. We also saw moments of success, and the best players are defined by their ability to learn from those struggles and apply those lessons moving forward in order to help them achieve their full potential. And we have great belief in each of those players you listed that they can be very, very good players and contributing members to a championship team. But we expect to see progress in each of their developments, and it's our job to make sure that they do take those steps. And we're very confident they will. But in part, I'm glad they go through those struggles. It's good for them, and once they go through it and they come out of it, they know. I experienced this as a rookie myself, and I remember having a terrible month of July my rookie year. I couldn't get anybody out, and I thought, oh man, I'm going back to the minor leagues. And I came out of it in August and was fine. These players, it's so important to look back on those moments the rest of their career and know that they've been through it and they came out of it on the other side successful.
Take a couple more. Jeff and Evan.
So you pitched for a while. Do you have, I'm sure there are attributes in various pitching coaches that you are fond of. So what attributes will the next Rangers pitching coach have?
Well, ultimately, a good coach, whether it's a pitching coach, hitting coach, bench coach, catching coach, whomever, I really believe that the ability to connect with a player, to understand the technical aspects of the position, and combine that with the psychological aspects and mesh the two, set the player up for success by helping them understand who they are and what they have to do to be successful. And ultimately, it's easier said than done, but the best coaches have a blend of both the technical, the skill-specific coaching abilities, but also the psychological.
You guys have an offensive coordinator. Do you believe in like a pitching coordinator, like not like a minor league pitching coordinator, but like somebody who would oversee that, kind of like Donnie does with the hitting?
Potentially. I think there are a lot of different ways to structure a pitching department, and we're going to be creative. I think some of that will be personnel driven. We'll see exactly. It starts with the manager. We need to find that, get that in place first, get the manager in place first, and then from there, really collectively, the manager should be part of that discussion. And from there, we'll define the best way, given our personnel and our organization, to set up the pitching department.
Evan?
This year has been a year for making your heads swim a little bit because of how much went on. But if we go back to July, I don't need to run through everything, but you know everything that went on. And when you moved into what amounted to the head of baseball operations, I don't even know if you've had time to like sit down and think about this, but as you sit here today, what do you need to do internally to yourself? Do you feel like I'm the best GM that I can be? What does Chris need to do to take the next step too?
Evan, it's a good question. I really haven't had a ton of self-reflecting time. It has been, there's been a lot going on. Ultimately, I think it's really comes down to surrounding myself with the best possible people, which I feel like we have. I've mentioned a couple times our leadership team. I don't have all the answers. I never will. But I know that with the opinions of a lot of others and the wisdom around me, that we're going to make good decisions. Convicted in what I believe a winning team should look like, what the environment needs to look like. We're going to stay disciplined to that. And in time, I'll have more time to self-reflect and get feedback from Ross and Josh and others who will gladly share their criticism for me, help me improve.
Anything else? Good? One more? Last one.
How would you rate the seasons of Corey Seeger, Nate Lowe, and Marcus Simeon?
I thought they all had very, very good seasons. Probably one thing I didn't touch on is really what a unique year this was. We had a pretty large roster overhaul this past offseason. We had a winter where we could not have access to our players. We had changed our hitting department at the big league level. there were a lot of moving parts, and bringing in new players into a new environment with new coaches, not having contact with them, and then trying to hit the ground running with an abbreviated spring training was a lot to ask. And I think it took a little while for our club to really understand and gel to some extent. As I sit here at the end of the season and see what each of those guys did and the impact they've made on our organization, I couldn't be happier. Specific to Marcus and Corey, the intangibles that they brought, that they bring, the winning mentality, the level of preparation, the care, it's everything we want. They're championship players. Nate, the growth he has taken in the clubhouse in terms of being a leader, the performance speaks for itself. Nate had a tremendous year. In some ways, our offensive MVP. What he did in the clubhouse, taking young guys under his wing, the way he worked day in, day out, the commitment he's made to improving his defense. Those things don't show up necessarily on the field night in, night out, but we see them internally. And really, really grateful to Nate for the progress he made and the steps he was willing to take. He's now a veteran player, and he's willing to take on a leadership role. And that's how and why we're going to get better as a club.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.